chasing the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm
Okay, welcome to another edition of the Coach's Corner, where we answer families' questions pertaining to baseball, youth baseball, travel baseball, high school, and college recruiting. My name is Walter Beede. Baseball Lifer is the channel name. On Twitter, you can find me at Baseball Lifer 11. And for those of you that ask, what is a baseball lifer? 56 years within the game of baseball as an athlete, as a head coach at college, travel, high school levels. More importantly, and most importantly for you as a parent of two sons, one now in his early 30s and the other in his late 20s. And we went through this process from top to bottom, from little league all the way up to the big leagues. So tonight, we are joined by the Tao family. We have Beth, JT, and Luke. And so I welcome you all tonight to our little Q&A session here. And JT, I'm going to put you on the spot and start with you, sir, and see if you have a question that you want me to answer.
Nothing really. It's just I have a question about how the recruiting process works.
With regard to when does it start? Is that really?
No, what is it like to go through the process?
Well, it depends. So I'll start at some of the lower levels of college as a Division III, NCAA Division III head coach, and probably at the NAIA Division II. The JUCO processes are a little bit unique, but for the most part, student athletes are identified based on an academic profile, first and foremost, and then secondly, the athletic fit for an individual program. For instance, certain schools will recruit position specific. Other schools, such as like a UVA and schools similar to that, they recruit athletes and then they kind of move athletes around. So as young athletes, we get caught up with the position that we play, but in college, we may play a different position based on how a college coach may see a potential fit, whether that be from an offensive skill point or from an athletic defensive standpoint. And I give you for instance, Jorge Posada, Yankees major league catcher for a number of years, was an infielder at South Alabama. And then in pro ball, he became a catcher. And so sometimes athletes kind of have a certain strength that a coach feels that they can develop at another position. So college recruiting is about being having the ability to be versatile, having an understanding of the role that you may fill as a potential student athlete. So like, for instance, what position do you play right now?
I'm a left-handed pitcher.
Okay. And do you play any position between the lines other than pitch?
I play outfield and first base.
Okay. And as a future college athlete, where do you feel your strength lies? Are you more of a pitcher that hits, or are you a hitter that pitches?
I'm more the pitcher that hits.
Okay. And so give me some statistics as far as height, weight, things like that.
I'm 5'11" and I weigh around 150.
Okay. And what year are you in school?
2026 freshman.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a lot of road ahead of you. And so that's actually good. So tell me something. Is college something that you sincerely think about now as a freshman in high school?
I think a lot about high school ball because of the upcoming season, but I'm also thinking ahead about college ball. Yes.
Okay. So this is perfect. So first I'm going to ask Beth or Luke, do you have any questions about that before I go into a long diatribe as far as 2026 in college baseball? Do you have any questions to add on top of that?
I think my main question is I use Twitter quite a bit to just get some research. And I think from a standpoint of, I see some of the kids that are in this area and they use Twitter to kind of put themselves out there. And my question is that the right thing, right vehicle avenue to use to get seen? Or is it more so important that he should be dialoguing with coaches after he identifies certain colleges that he's interested in?
Well, I think I find social media to be fascinating from the perspective of the parents feel that social media is kind of an engagement between student athlete and college coach. It's really not that way. And to be perfectly honest with you, the best course of action is to work in silence and develop physically, and then emerge as a junior, going into your junior year as a physically developed left-handed pitcher. So Twitter and Instagram to some degree, I always say that it's more hype than it is substance, because a lot of parents and a lot of student athletes, when you see commitments of a 2025 or 2026, and even as silly as it sounds, some of these 2027s, that's a personal decision that an athlete and their family have decided upon, and they just want to share it for validation and promotional purposes on Twitter. But the reality is college baseball recruiting is vastly different than the perceived kind of process that you see on social media. And I'll give you a case in point. By the year 2025, 2026, the college baseball landscape is going to look entirely different. There'll probably be, I'm fairly certain there'll probably be by that time, 3 super conferences that'll be controlled by the mega football, basketball schools. And those conferences will have probably upwards of 25 to as many as 30 scholarships for baseball. They'll have much larger coaching staffs. They may even have scouting departments, if you can believe that. So the landscape is going to look very different. So rather than trying to worry about college as a high school freshman, the reality is college coaches are calling a big timeout. They're slowing it way down. In fact, if you could listen to college coaches and the conversations they have amongst themselves, almost to a man, they would tell you that they have stepped way back, pulled way back on the number of high school recruits in any given recruiting class. And they've started to kind of leave some voids for the uncertain transfer possibilities or JUCO transfer possibilities. Whereas in years past, they load up on high school student athletes. Now they tend to kind of add the standout high school athlete, and then they leave room in those classes for the unexpected and the unknown, which is really what lies ahead. So the biggest single determination of what makes a college student athlete is physical development. And it's probably the least discussed, the most underworked, undervalued aspect to travel baseball world. We worry so much about games, showcases, camps. Reality, none of that is really necessary, to be perfectly honest with you. Up and through the age of, say, you're coming out of your sophomore year in school and you're going into your junior fall, that's when you can start to say, okay, I really need to try to get on a radar. But that's the time when has some understanding of want their future. By that, what college do I really want to go to, and why do I want to go to that college over and above baseball? So I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, I spoke with a family very similar. Their son is a junior in high school, a left-handed pitcher, freshman and sophomore year, very under the radar. They came to me right after the 8th grade had been completed, and they asked me what kind of work they should focus on. And I put them on I connected their dots to Eric Cressy, and that young man went from 5'11", 155 to 6 foot or just north of 6 foot, but 195, 198. And that young man now is being pursued by all the high level academic, ACC, NESCAT schools, Patriot League. So from an academic perspective, a left-handed pitcher is highly desirable, especially a left-handed pitcher that's physically, can show some physicality, some developed strength. So we tend to spend money on tournaments, gate fees, lodging, food, lessons, travel organization fees, apparel. But in reality, if we stepped back and we said, okay, we want to add, say, 20 to 40 pounds over the next 2.5, 3 years, how do we best approach that? And what's the benefit of that? Well, the benefit is if I took a poll and you as a family were like listening over my left shoulder and you said, okay, what is the number one thing that coaches are going to look for when JT is, 18, 17? And they're going to tell you to be physically prepared when the feet hit the ground on campus your freshman year in college. So coming out of your senior year in high school, getting ready to be a freshman in college, when your feet hit the ground, you're physically prepared to compete. And that is probably 90% of all Division I baseball freshmen end up not participating at the level that they would like or would have hoped to, because they weren't physically prepared to be in that battle against 22 and 23-year-old men. The game is getting older. So, from your perspective, as a high school freshman, you want to play in your high school season, but you really want to get a game plan with regard to nutrition and strength. And by strength, I mean serviceable strength for pitchers, grip strength, lower half, leg, core, spine, things that are going to help you as a pitcher. We tend not to hear about that on social media all that much, although there has been an uptick with a few people kind of bursting onto the scene. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to, it was Balk Talk. It was Ian Balk. I don't know if you listen to his podcast or not.
I do.
Ian talked specifically, he was interviewing just his most recent podcast with Jake. And Jake mentioned that very, very simple concept of in high school, it should be physical development and learning mechanics. And when you get to college, you should be through your physical development and mechanics become more and more focused. And so it's good to hear you say that, because it kind of aligns with, it really goes against what we're hearing in the circles we run in many times, is because what you hear more of is the promotion of the showcases, creating visibility, creating awareness. When the reality is, I think what you're saying is aligns with what Ian said is regards to, hey, go work and you'll be found. If you work hard and you're ready, you'll be found.
Well, I think the narrative. So what is the narrative? So I can tell you as a dad back in, I'm going to say 2005, 2006, my oldest son was a sophomore in high school. My youngest son was about to be a graduate of the 8th grade. And, as a college coach, I had just stepped back because both the boys were about to be on the same high school team. And so one of the things that I did as a college coach was every year a freshman would come in, I would take their pictures up against the wall and I would put those pictures into a drawer, and then I would give them to them upon graduation. And every time I did that over my 7-year time period, you would see these physical changes, and you would say, remember this guy when he came in, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, et cetera. And then it dawned on me the same thing was about to happen for my sons. And so I began to look and talk to those people that I respected within the game, guys like Rich Gedman, who was a longtime catcher with the Red Sox here, and just asking for their thoughts. And they all said, make sure the boys get into the weight room. Well, my oldest son didn't really take advantage of that. He played multiple sports, but my youngest son really took to that. And the change in his abilities based on the strength training were immediately noticeable, and it was discernible to the point where you were like, okay, we're on to something here. And so right around that time, 2009, I think, is when social media began to explode, and with it came travel baseball. Heck, I go back to East Cobb before PBR. But really, social media has driven this narrative of exposure, competition, have a lot of lessons, be out there, be seen. Whereas the college baseball landscape is much different. So the narrative of travel baseball and social media doesn't quite fit with the coaches' feedback that you get on a consistent basis. And the reason is money, because these travel organizations and these showcases, they're $27 billion industry. And so they need to tell parents, you need us, you want us, that kind of thing. When in reality, you don't really need them. You can use them when the time is right, but you don't need them. What is necessary as a freshman, JT, tell me this, on next Monday, what are you going to have for dinner?
Not sure.
No idea, right?
Yes.
So how could you possibly, as a high school freshman, know what you want to major in as a sophomore or junior in college? If I said to you, you have to pick a major tomorrow, would you know what you wanted to major in?
No, sir.
Okay. So really, we're asking young boys to pick colleges based on a baseball program. And in reality, a coaching staff could change. The school could go from a Power 5 school to the Super Conference in 2 years. And suddenly you go from having a 25% scholarship to potentially getting 100% scholarship. So there's no need for those types of decisions to be discussed. What needs to be discussed is, okay, JT, if I told you that for every 10 pounds of body mass, you were going to pick up 1 to 1.5 miles an hour. And so therefore, I don't know what you throw now, but over the next 3 years to 4 years of high school, you could potentially gain 4 to 8 miles an hour in velocity as a left-handed pitcher, depending upon how aggressive you were and how diligent you were with your strength training. That would matter to you, right, as a pitcher?
Yes.
Okay. So when you first rode a bike, do you remember training wheels?
Yes.
Did you use training wheels when dad or mom first taught you how to ride a bike?
I believe so.
Okay. That's what's happening now. So your high school baseball, especially the first 2 years, no college coach is going to ask you what your statistics were, whether you played JV or varsity. They don't care. They're not going to ask you what your velocity was as a freshman. They don't want to know what your varsity, if you played varsity, what your velocity was as a sophomore. They want to know that you're trending forward physically, meaning your body maturation is projecting forward and up, and that you're diligent in that area. They want to know that your mechanics are sound. And so this is the training wheel phase of really what I call big boy baseball at the college level. And what you don't understand, social media presents this allure of everybody's really great and nobody fails and everybody throws no hitters and everybody throws 90. But in reality, people give up home runs, people walk people with the bases loaded. And those are things to figure out as a freshman in high school and as a sophomore in high school, so that you mentally understand that college baseball is nothing more than being the best that you're capable of being every time you're presented with an opportunity to play. It's as simple as that. It's all about being competitive mentally and physically on a day-to-day basis in a sport that's excessively hard the higher you get to. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, what schools do you aspire to play at?
Any school in the SEC.
Aha. Okay. Now, why do you pick the SEC?
I've just grown up in a southern part, and the SEC has just always been a more competition and better fight.
Okay. Now, do you project yourself? Do you, as an athlete, say to yourself, I think I can pitch in the SEC?
I go sometimes and say to myself that I could if I really put my effort forth.
Okay. So now, Beth or Luke, how do you envision JT's future? What do you see when you watch him play or participate?
I would say that you kind of have to look at two sides of a coin. I think one side of the coin tells you that he's still a young boy and he has to kind of figure out what it really means to be an athlete who is, what's a D1 athlete look like and how they operate. And you've got to have the work ethic, I think. I mean, to your point, there's a lot of physical grace given to a guy who walks into a D1 SEC school that's 6'2", 220 versus a young kid who's not that size. I think you got to understand that component of it. You got to work hard and develop. I think the other is you got to understand the mental capacity. I think my view of him is he has the capacity. He learns, he adjusts, he adapts. He doesn't get frazzled in places where you think he would. And I think those are things that are the mental characteristics that you need in a young athlete to be able to withstand the challenges they're going to face. The physicality will come. It'll take time. I mean, I was, I'm like him when I was his age, was more long and lanky than anything, but it grew into it. And I think that's the component. I say physically, he's going to get there. He may not get there to his freshman year in high school or freshman year in college, excuse me. But I do think he has the mental capacity to withstand the challenges that he's going to go through to get there. He's just got to get there.
I think one benefit is that we have is the area that we live in Georgia. We have that ability to play against some good talent. And I think as he goes into high school, it's going to really separate the boys from the men, especially for him and in this area. Because he will play up against some very, very good talent and throw against some good talent. And what I have noticed thus far is I have noticed in coaches as of late, especially when he goes and just picks up or plays on a team, you might have that kid that has the velo, but they have no accuracy. And he doesn't have the velo yet, but he does have the accuracy. And so they're taking those kids out and then they'll have him close the game. So, there are some things there. I think if he puts his mind to it, he can reach, whatever he wants to reach. But I think just being able to look to people like you to kind of help us in that journey is immensely beneficial for us. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little secret about velocity. Here's the other narrative that a lot of parents fall kind of, I wouldn't say prey to, but we all chase that word velocity. So parent of a pitcher, it wasn't so much from my perspective, but I knew how much it meant to both my boys, but my oldest one was a catcher. My youngest one was a pitcher. And so you chase that big 90, and everybody chases that number. And we have these gadgets and programs and, these gurus that want to tell us that they have the secret to unlock the key to throwing hard. Here's the secret. Mother Nature, the big guy upstairs, and repetition. Meaning, if we just go by the equation that I alluded to earlier, that physical maturation is going to occur in JT. That's not a question. That's inevitably, he's going to get bigger through, physical development just over the course of growing into his man body. And so those extra pounds create body mass that creates arm strength, that creates velocity. That's number one. Number two is when the gurus all speak about going from 76 to 90, and that Michael, last year was throwing 76 and this year he's up to 82. Okay, that's just 1 year of growth plus 1 year of knowledge equals extra velocity. It's simply a metric. But I always tell parents, I say, JT, would you say you're fast?
I mean, I'm like average.
Okay, but if I said to you a pit bull was chasing you, do you think you would run faster?
Yes.
Okay. No pit bull in front of 8 boys, 9 boys. And so I think they're trying to throw hard, but there's no pit bull yet. Because everybody grows up now in this travel ball world of 10U to 11U to 12U to 13U. So everybody's kind of complacent because they know there's really no pit bull in the room yet because I'm only facing guys my age. Well, you get to high school and you get into the locker room and you see 18 and 19-year-olds Then you get into games against 18 and 19-year-olds, and that pit bull starts to emerge, and the adrenaline begins to rush. And all of a sudden, that 78-mile-an-hour fastball becomes 82. And then as you get older and it gets a little bit more adrenaline, those types of things lead to the velocity. There's a bigger pit bull in the room. I always tell the story how Tyler went as a freshman. He was 17 years old at Vanderbilt pitching against Stanford, who had 8 first-round draft picks in their lineup, Stephen Piscotty, Alex Blandino, I mean, a number of guys, and he got his rear end kicked. But once he started getting into SEC ball, where he was facing future major leaguers like Mike Zunino, all these big heavy hitters, there was a bigger pit bull chasing him, and he knew, I have to really begin to amp my game up a little bit. But a couple of secrets for you, JT. One is throwing a football. Throw a football every day. Play catch more, pitch less. Rule number 1. The football and the softball, just implement those into your daily playing catch routine. And there's a lot of benefits to that. Oh, by the way, they're both heavier than a baseball. So heavier objects aren't necessarily bad for your arm. It just engages your entire body. So that's going to help you throw more effectively, more efficiently, which will lead to velocity. The other secret to this is caloric intake. So you want to throw harder, and everybody wants to go get a gadget, strap it to their arm, and they want to do all these running guns. We don't need that. What we need is a combination of good nutrition, good caloric intake, and good strength training on a regular basis. Those things are going to help you develop into the pitcher if you aspire to play at the higher levels of college. Because with strength in your core, with grip strength, with leg strength, your body moves faster. It moves in a more explosive capacity. The faster that you move underneath, the faster you're going to throw up above. So it's all about integration of all these different components that allow your body to move in a more explosive capacity. And then all of a sudden, lightning starts to come out of your hand. And always recognize this. There's been many left-handed pitchers in the SEC that are in that 86 to 90 window. Everything in pitching is about separation, meaning a fastball comes in at 86, a changeup coming in at 76 is just as effective as a fastball at 92, 93, and a changeup at 82, 83. So left-handed pitchers have the benefit of 90% of the world is right-handed. So therefore, they're seeing a left-handed pitcher. Think about all the hitters that you face. Who throws in batting practice? Right-handed pitchers. You don't see a lot of left-handed BP pitchers. And so you have the ability to be unique just by being left-handed. And so once you learn the powers of multifaceted training, meaning your strength portion, your nutrition and caloric intake portion, your throwing routines, those become daily disciplines, and those can help you far more effectively than, say, going to a showcase or playing travel baseball, 300 miles away from home, in Florida or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and so you get to ask one big final question. What SEC team is your favorite SEC team?
Georgia.
I was afraid you were going to say that. So I like the guys in black and gold myself, but just understand this. You have one period in your life to go through high school. You don't get to go back through that. A lot of parents, a lot of adults will say to children, oh, you always have time to go back to school. You always have time to go to. You have effectively an 8-year window, 9-year window starting today to be a kid. That means you get to make mistakes and learn from them. That means you get a lot of trial and error, a lot of decisions that you're going to make. Some will be good, some won't be so good. What you try to do is live every day to the best of your capabilities, and you just put Georgia at the top of that list of wish lists that you might have. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Don't let anybody tell you that you won't. And what you have to do is every day say to yourself, I'm going to be 1% better tomorrow than I am today. And if you just live by that rule, And you don't have to worry about what that person says and this person says. It won't matter. You live your life with your focus. And even if it comes up short and you end up at, say, a Vanderbilt, you don't get to go to Georgia. You know, baseball is a sport that you want to use for academic excellence, meaning have the best college experience that you're capable of having that fits you from a cultural standpoint, a social standpoint, most importantly, an academic standpoint, so that when you do graduate college and you look back, you say, I had a lot of fun, I learned a great deal, I got a great degree, and now I'm ready for the rest of my life. But that's how you have to look at baseball. Baseball isn't the say all, be all, end all. It's just a sport that helps you obtain a great educational experience, top to bottom. And if you do play in the SEC, it's the greatest 4 years of your life. I can promise you that, having seen it live and up close. It's tough to pitch in those ballparks, though, my good man. So you better prepare yourself mentally. So as I tell all parents, and Beth, you know this, I'm always accessible via Twitter. You can reach out to me at any time if you have specific questions, but always remember this is your life. Make your plan, create your opportunities. Don't worry about other people's opportunities, other people's commitments. That none of that matters to JT. What matters to JT is UGA, SEC, get into the weight room, eat every day like you want to go to Georgia, work hard every day in the classroom like you want to go to UGA, and then baseball wise will take care of itself if you're doing all the work. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
And then, so baseball life for 11, you know that, Beth. You can reach out to me, JT, anything that you might need at any time. Just, you know, send me a quick message. If I don't get your message right away, I will get back to you. I always, you know, direct message, whether I'm direct messaging mom or other people on Twitter, but I'm always sending messages back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate
All right, you got it. Luke,
Yes.
thank you. JT, thank you. Beth, thank you very much. And I want to let everybody know, Coach's Corner here on YouTube. If you like what you saw today, leave us a like, a question. I'll always get back to you. I'll answer your questions directly. Of course, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, get into the Coach's Corner, get involved, be engaged, play the sport for fun. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye now.